Good evening. We are going to begin with the conference number 25, Exoterism, Pseudo-Esoterism, and Exoterism. This conference teaches us how to distinguish different kinds of knowledge and focus in a spiritual work of eliminating our ego. So the aims of the conference are to focus in a job that our students learn how to distinguish an esoteric school from a pseudo-esoteric school and to understand where the student stands in knowledge when he began experiencing the esoteric work. In this kind of knowledge, you need to be really clear in what you wish to do with your spiritual job. If you wish to focus in eliminating your ego, in working for awakening your conscience, you cannot lose your focus and permit or allow that other forces come and distract you from the objective. Our objective here in this kind of knowledge is to awaken the 100% of conscience. Some other kinds of knowledge teaches us to distract with other elements that are not corresponding to this connection with our spiritual part. So we're gonna take a look at that. So we are going to begin by talking about what exoterism is. It's external knowledge. This knowledge comes through books, courses in the external world, and is accepted by our personality. Of the 1,000 who seek, only one finds it. The secret path. We are talking about a real spiritual path that is going to lead us to work in ourself and our awakening of the conscience, the 3% of justice, wisdom, and love. So there are two paths when you receive this external knowledge, when you hear a conference, when you see a video or something that allows you to get in contact with this information. You can either or believe that this kind of knowledge is true and accepted and go further to investigate it in the astral projection to confirm that this knowledge is true. You just accept it and it sounds really spiritual, it sounds really fine, so you just believe it's true. That is the path of the believer, not confirming what you hear, just accepting as it is. And the practical part will be different, will be what really gets us to experience directly the force of our being, to practice the meditation, to practice the astral projection, and verifying really that this knowledge is true because it comes from direct experimentation. So you see that in this picture, the unpleasant truth is going to be that no one wants to experience. People are really lazy. We have the psychological flaw of the slot in us. We are just comfort, just doing our things of the personality, our entertainment, our intellectual things, and we don't want to find that the time or the space to practice the astral projection or something that is going to lead us to connect with our spiritual force. So that is the unpleasant truth. Also, the unpleasant truth is that we want an easy way, an easy and fast way to do things, like having a way to connect to our being, but it has to be really fast and easy. So practice takes time, takes discipline, takes dedication. In order to do an astral projection, you have to try it many times. Sometimes you have to get to frustration because the practice does not have the result you expected. But the truth is you need to try many times. You need to practice and practice, and it's not going to be really fast and easy as you expect. So many people just end up or believing or just not listening to this kind of knowledge, and they don't get to the practical path. The practical path is the only thing that is going to get us in touch with our spiritual part, with the force of our being, what is truth and doesn't pass away with time, something that is eternal and that is beyond all lies and all the toys of personality. So now we are going to talk about pseudo-esoterism. It means false interior knowledge. In all cases, it's received by the personality. Also, as well as the exoterism, is received by our external part, our personality, and not by the conscience, because it's not received in our inner world, only in the external world. So here we find the merchandise of souls, books, theories that is really frightful because, well, they try to sell us things that are supposedly spiritual, but they are just trying to profit our money. So we find fortune tellers, witches, hypnotists, mediums, sorcerers, healers, and swindlers, people that just want to take out our money and deceive us. So also there are a lot of intellectual fascinations by acquiring books that talk about spirituality, but they don't allow us to really get in touch with the force of our spiritual part. They only talk and talk a lot of concepts about trying to interpret what is the force of the divine within us, a lot of theories, but are not going to lead us to the direct experimentation of the superior dimensions that we have within us in our microcosmos. So it's something that is false. It's not going to lead us to the occult path. The occult path is just searching what we are in our interior world. And as the Greeks said, man, know yourself and you will know the universe and the gods. So within us we find the path or the hidden door to access to all the secrets of the universe, though we don't know it. So pseudo-esoterists just profit our ignorance on these spiritual matters and just are going to deceive us with many products. They are going to try to sell us a door for the paradise, for the connection with our superior dimensions, but this is a false door because it's not going to lead us anywhere, but it's going to make us more materialistic. It's going to make us awaken forces that are not from our conscience but from our ego. Fascination in superstition, manipulation, even witchcraft is connected with our darkness, with our darkest forces of the ego. So it's nothing related to the force of justice, wisdom, and love. To finding what is truthful, just, and is going to lead us to experience the superior dimensions, vibrating with the least amounts of love. And so we are not going to find that in pseudo-esoterism. So how to distinguish a pseudo-esoteric school? So they charge for knowledge. They are going to be behind our money, searching to have profit from us. They don't teach the three factors for the revolution of conscience, which we know that are the practice of the spiritual birth, working with our sexual energy to ascend the force of the kundalini of love through our spinal cord, creating the superior existential bodies for our being, eliminating the heaviest and grotesque elements of our ego that don't let us vibrate with the forces of love of the universe, the universal harmony, and sacrifice for mankind, that is bringing this knowledge uninterestedly to mankind for people to awaken their conscience and liberate themselves from the forces of ego. So they say all roads lead to Rome. Well, that's not at all true, because if you follow the path of the ego, of materialism, of the seven causal egos, of fascination, of entertainment, that is not going to lead you at all to a connection with your spiritual part. They are intellectual and they state that esoteric knowledge can be learned in books. So that is totally fake, because, as you know, exoterism is learning book, conference, and people bring you some information, but that information has to lead you to the practice. The practice is what's going to open the sacred door of your microcosmos. Only through meditation you can understand and get to eliminate anger, get to eliminate envy, lust, fornication, and all the forces of the ego that are trapping your conscience. Is only what's going to make you 100% conscious. Just eliminating that forces of darkness which enslave you. So they give teachings that don't lead anywhere or confuse. For example, that you can awaken your conscience having a balanced diet. That is totally not true, because, well, it's good to take care of your physical body and vital energy, but it's not going to eliminate your ego. And what we need to do to awaken our conscience is get rid of those seven capital sins or causal egos, however you wish to call them, but those are the seven big families of the psychological flaws that are trapping your ability to love, your ability to have a little bit of wisdom, to act consciously, and to get to measure the consequences out and the causes of your acts, in order that you can behave according to the principles of wisdom and love, and be the light on the path of many people that surround you. If you don't get to do that, you're just going to keep causing the same mistakes and sufferings that these psychological flaws originate. So these esoteric schools, pseudo-esoteric schools, teach to practice some activities of the Black Lodge. They teach to awaken powers, and they are fascinated with just manipulating things, overwhelming people with magic tricks, with levitation, reading the cards, parapsychologists, spiritualism, mediums practices, but when you have your ego and the forces of the dark part of you inside, well, these abilities or these faculties that you have are going to be trapped by a psychological flaw, and you will end up being being the force of darkness, just manipulating people that are around you, and awakening the forces of your conda buffer organ that are all the forces of ego. So they teach witchcraft, manipulation of elementals, practices of black tantra, or don't teach the chastity, that is the conscious way to manipulate the sexual energy in order to awaken the power of love. If you don't use your sexual energy to create your conscience, you're going to use it to create and give a lot of energy to your psychological flow, to the fornication. They don't teach how to eliminate ego. Well, they just are not interested in awakening the conscious, so they just teach how to overwhelm people, to fascinate and hypnotize people with things that are from the personality, being proud because you know how to read the cards, or you know how to tell people their destiny with crystals, and yes, thinking you're better than them, superior, and that you have powers. So those are forces of ego, because the conscience just know that is in humility and not showing yourself that you can awaken the force of your spiritual part. So they don't teach that karma is paid full at once and that can be negotiated. They don't. They are just not interested on helping people awaken their conscience, of raising the levels of being. They are not interested in being the force of light in this planet. They're just interested in material things like power, money, influence, being recognized. They don't teach to look for self-fulfillment in one lifetime, or the self-realization of our being, that is awakening the 100% of conscience. That is totally not their objective, not their aim. Many sell perfumes, oils, talismans, candles, books, and beverages. So you see there are things of the personality, a lot of accessories that are going to distract you, or even take the worst things out of your internal work, your lowest psychological flaws, like manipulating people, like messing with the destiny, or the law of karma that another person has, that is something that is for the learning of another being. You cannot mess with that because it's something that corresponds to the knowledge of different people, and you cannot mess with the law of destiny of someone else just because of wanting more money, more power, and more influence. So you see that those are things that are completely opposed to the wisdom and love that our being has. So the main difference between a white mage and a black mage is the quality of their knowledge. When we read a book written by a black magician, we are invoking him. Even we don't know that we are summoning some dark elements and attracting something that is of a terrible influence, egoic influence. Well, we can be doing that because when we read a book, we are attracting a lot of concepts into our mind, and that is like a mental attack, because we have so much information related to something that is sometimes opposed to our spiritual part, and that is trying to get us to think that that is spiritual. For example, reading someone that tells you that you're going to get in touch with your spiritual part reading the cards. So you're just putting in your mind some concepts that are not going to lead you to practice a direct experimentation of your conscience. When we mix forces, the original force is lost while a third and destructive force arises. The pseudo-esotericism puts into activity the lower psyche and the conda buffer organ, that is the satanic tail, or this conduct that connects us with the infernal worlds of the planet Earth. So it vibrates and awakens the heaviest part of our ego, and we are going to slowly lose our sincere desire to self-fulfill ourselves. Little by little, we lose confidence in our own being and end up relying in foreign elements. For example, I'm not going to do the practice of the astral projection to transcend this psychological flaw, because I suddenly have a talisman that protects me. So this concept is not going to let me advance and move forward in my spiritual part. They are really dangerous concepts that are being put in our mind by different books and texts that are written by black magicians that don't want us to awaken our conscience. So we need to be really careful with that. Now let's talk about esoterism, that it means interior knowledge or occult knowledge. This is the real spiritual force that we have. The true esoterist seeks the knowledge in the inner world. You see how this person is pulling out his head of this um, superficial part, this evident part that is our third dimension or external world, and is seeing beyond the evidence. So the true esoterist is going to see beyond the superficial part and get in touch with his inner world. It's not possible to get this knowledge in any external place, in any manual of conduct, books, or school from the outside world. You are going to really explore the secrets of your inner world that has the wisdom of all the universe. So within ourselves, we have all the elements: the fire, the water, the air, um, all the elements that we see in our external world. So if we learn how to balance those forces and look within ourselves, um, awaken the faculty of the self-observation of our inner world, we are going to get in touch with our spiritual part that comes from the elimination of those psychological flaws that steal our energy in our daily life. If we look in our microcosmos and we see that the psychological flow of anger is taking away our emotional energy, we are going to eliminate and disintegrate this psychological flow, and it's going to liberate the fire of love and the light of wisdom. We are going to have those powers available to do other things to get it in touch with our psychic side, with our spiritual part. For example, the ability to go to the fifth dimension, the astral projection, to ask our being, why do I came through this existence? Why am I here? What is the purpose of this? So you have all the powers of knowing about all the secrets of the universe, just getting to decipher all the hidden elements that are within yourselves. For example, self-observing your impatience. You see that there are many psychological flaws that tell you um, how to act, how to respond, the mechanical reactions that, for example, you observe that you wake up and immediately you're thinking that you don't want to get out of your bed, you want to keep sleeping, so you see the psychological flaw of laziness. If you say, Divine Mother, eliminate me this psychological flaw, you immediately are going to be the owner of certain faculties and certain powers and forces that you don't have. You didn't have before eliminating the flaw. For example, the faculty of discipline, the power of just having having the will to control your physical body, to get rid of your mechanical reaction of just letting yourself be carried by your pleasures. So being the owner and not the slave of your physical body is something that is going to develop your conscious will. These powers and these faculties are going to awaken a force within yourself that you didn't know you had. And this fire, this wisdom is going to keep you acting in a really conscious way. You're going to be awakening your conscious. You are going to be really lucid in the third dimension, and also when you go to sleep, you can be aware of what's happening inside of you. Your dreams are going to be really lucid. You're going to get in touch with the different parts of your being and be able to ask different things about the purpose in this existence and what you need to do to awaken the 100% of conscience and getting to reunite with your being. That is esotericism. So, real esotericism is only achieved by the three factors of the revolution of conscience. The esoteric knowledge can only be reached through these three important tools that you have to eliminate the force of ego. That is psychological death, in which you are going to ask the superior force of love, your divine mother, to eliminate you all the details of the causal egos that you observe within yourself. For example, anger, lust, greed, gluttony, and all of them, all the details, the vanity, the intellectualism, all the details that you see of forces that enslave you and not let you get in touch with your spiritual part. The spiritual part and the spiritual birth will be just condensing this energy that is liberated from the psychological death in your spinal cord and fixing it with the work in sex, uniting with the couple of your being, a couple with which you are going to practice the fidelity, chastity, and love. It's a couple of the opposed sex, male and female, and you're going to do a sexual practice, a sexual connection in which you're going to do a respiratory process that allows you to ascend your energy through your spinal cord, the serpent kundalini, and condense all the energy that you took away from the psychological flaws. That is going to lead you to create the superior existential bodies for your being. and sacrifice for humanity, which is the third factor, and that is going to lead you to eliminate your selfishness and be able to awaken your uninterested part, not expecting anything in return, just helping someone by the love of helping him, to awaken his conscience, to feel superior emotions, to get in touch with his being. That is sacrifice for humanity, the force of love, of doing something without expecting anything in return, just for the happiness of being able to share something that's really superior with other people in order for them to stop being the slaves of their mind and getting in touch with their spiritual part. So the object of this esoteric knowledge is to self-fulfill our being. That is to awaken the 100% of conscience that is trapped in our ego. And okay, so to the extent that we liberate consciousness, each spark each spark of the psychological flow that you liberated receives the knowledge according to its vocation. For example, if you liberate anger, you're going to have the virtue of the patience, of the understanding, of the comprehension, and that is going to occur with all your psychological flaws that you eliminate. You're going to rescue the virtues of your soul. When we receive the esoteric knowledge as a closed book, that means that you have an astral projection, a dream in which you see a closed book. That means that you cannot share this knowledge with other people, that you cannot talk about, oh, the last night about I dreamed about I don't know, having coffee with my friend and seeing a pig. So no, you cannot share this kind of knowledge if it's a closed book. If you see a closed book in your astral projection, that means you have to remain silent. And that is information that is confidential between you and your spiritual part, and cannot be revealed in the external world. You have to keep silent. But if it's received as an open book, it means that you can share this knowledge with your students. For example, that your being is teaching you something to help other people. So you can, if it's an open book, you can share it with them. You can share your experience because it's going to teach something to the students you're sharing this knowledge with. So each being has his own knowledge. To the extent that the consciousness awakens and enters in harmony with nature, our being let us enter in contact with the wisdom that we had long ago. We didn't remember, but through all our past existences, we have accumulated a lot of learnings, a lot of knowledge. And when we start to meditate, start to do conscious retrospections, this knowledge is going to come to us in any form, in forms of astral projections, in form of just getting in touch with the force of our intuition. So we learn to know what is the force of our ego and what is the force of our conscience. And we are going to know a lot of things about ourselves that we didn't even know. Things from past existences, things we need to do to get in touch even more with our spiritual part, and different transcendental changes we need to do in our existence in order to be in connection with the force of justice, wisdom, and love. So the person who practices, mm, remember that we talked about the paths of the believer and the paths of the practice. So if you go through the path of the believer, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to reject this kind of knowledge because you're not going to put it into practice. If you put it into practice, then you will open the door of the esotericism. You're going to lead your being to a stage of mesoterism. Mesoterism means that you're getting in touch slowly with the different parts of your being, and that you're stepping into the occult path with the practices that you do in your daily life. So the person who practices will begin the work of the first mountain. The first mountain is the mountain of the spiritual birth, in which you are going to create uh, the existential bodies for your being. But first you need to lighten up the fire. That means making the initiations of the major mysteries, just awakening the force of your kundalini and crystallizing the superior existential bodies, regenerating the physical body, the vital body, creating the astral body, creating the mental body, and creating the causal body. Then, when the initiate starts to go to the process of the second mountain, will learn how to the esoteric knowledge. And when he goes to the third mountain, that is the resurrection, he will enter the esoteric school of his being. So this is just a general aspect that we are talking about, the the complete work of the awakening of conscience. But you're going to have more details about that in other conferences that talk specifically of the spiritual birth, of the first mountain, of the mountain um, of the creation of your churches, just eliminating the seven causal egos. You're going to hear about um, choosing the direct path, not going through the nirvana, but choosing the direct path to unite with the forces of our being. But that will be in other conferences. So, most students make the mistake of thinking they are esoterists just by listening to the conference, feeling initiated without having begun to practice suprasex, feeling conscious without eliminating ego. All of this because of the false sense of the self, that you think you're so good, you're so perfect. You meditate 5 minutes and you think that you eliminated your causal egos. You are self-deceiving yourself, your being, just lying to yourself, thinking that you are good, and not seeing your own inner darkness is going to make the spiritual work more difficult, because you need to see your darkness in order to get light out of darkness. So finally, when our being achieves the sacred individuality, we can say we had truly become an esoterist. When we awaken the 100% of conscience, when we integrate the forces of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in that moment, we reach the first step of the universal wisdom, because we reunite with the superior centers of our human machine. We connect with our spiritual part, and we can just know and enter to what we call the army of light. That is something that we are going to see in other conferences, the army of the voice. Um, and you're going to be in touch, completely reunited with your spiritual part, knowing all the secrets of the universe and having the power to create through your voice, through the verbal power. So this is the esoteric work. This conference had the purpose of distinguishing when you want to deceive yourself, thinking that you are going to self-realize just with things from the personality that are fake, like material things like talismans and those things that are from the pseudo-esoterism, exoteric information that is not verifiable unless you practice, and the real path that is only going to come to us when we get to practice and verifying the superior existential bodies through the suprasex, or verifying the dimensions that we have through an astral projection, or just verifying the transformation that we have when we eliminate one of our egos, when we do the meditation. So that's it. That's the conference. And if you have any questions or any suggestions, you can get in touch with us. Thank you very much and have a good night.